One of the things that I want to spend just a minute on, since we have some time, is the method that these companies are going through to both monetize their assets and to do the administrative wind down of the show. Because remember, these will be asset sales. We're going to assume for most of these cases that equity is out of the money. We're going to just try to do the best we can to get recovery for the debt, starting with the senior secured debt and then the trade creditors. We do some bankruptcy work, but now you're in front of a court. You're subject to their timeline, their expenses. You might have an unsecured creditors committee. If we can find an alternative to that, that's a much better option in most cases. And most of these venture-backed companies we're dealing with are not going to be restructured. They're not going to be sold in a way that has to be done through a Chapter 11 process. So we'll use this term again, assignment for the benefit of creditors, or ABC for short, that many of you may have heard about. Is becoming much more prominent as a way to wind down a company. And ABC is not done under federal bankruptcy law. It's done under state law in California or Delaware, New Jersey. Various states have various statutes. Some have unfavorable statutes like New York. But we often can find a jurisdiction where a company will contract with a private trustee, or assignee as they're called, to do essentially the job of a Chapter 7 bankruptcy trustee. But here the company gets to choose its own trustee. You're not assigned a random one. And it's often someone like my firm Resolution who has experience in monetizing esoteric assets. So we could come in on a very cost-controlled basis with a fixed budget and a glide path to not only monetizing the assets, but actually taking over for the board, who's then permitted to resign, and doing the administrative wind down, taking care of the creditors and the employees and the record storage and the tax returns, and in a very, very efficient way, provide a soft landing for the company itself, a response to creditors, and at the same time, recovering whatever value we can recover for the lenders. So it's something that I think everybody should be considering, as bankruptcy is cumbersome and more expensive. That this is an alternative, along with the receivership, along with the foreclosures, which we also do on behalf of venture lenders. We act as a foreclosure agent.
Can I add one other thing, which I think is a major advantage of an ABC? Oftentimes, you have people who have lost a lot of money in these situations, who have platinum reputations, and they are concerned about their reputations. And so a huge advantage of an ABC as well is that it is really a quasi-private transaction. You're not making public filings as you would be in a Chapter 7 or a Chapter 11. So not only is there an economy of process as well as an economy of dollars, but there is also, I would say, an economy of publicity. And so what that allows is for people to make tougher decisions quicker without the embarrassment, so to speak, of having those decisions be reported publicly.
And Matt, you've purchased companies, or assets rather, through ABCs. What has your experience been like?
We think it's a really interesting situation. Sometimes there'll be a unicorn. 5 years ago, it had no revenue, it had no customers, it had no employees. Today, it has maybe 10 million of ARR. It has patents as a team, but the venture lender is tired. The VC is past its fun life, and it's not a unicorn anymore, but it's still a great business, and they just turn over the keys. So it's an opportunity to come in and then buy this smaller business with all these great capabilities, the patents, the trade name, the customer list, and then start it again from this very low basis. So we find them very interesting opportunities, and you can buy it debt-free. So it gives you a chance to take a swing at a unicorn prospect with a pennies on the dollar purchase price.
Debt-free is a good point. Yes, when you buy the assets, you've got a brand new clean balance sheet. And Claudia, I know that an ABC has been a go-to solution for Silicon Valley Bank for many years. We talked about foreclosure a few minutes ago. Certainly the bank doesn't want to own operating assets. So tell us why this has worked out for the bank.
I think it was Matt who said it's one of the ways to maximize return for the assets that we have, understanding that for venture-backed companies, the biggest asset a lot of the times is cash. And at this point, they don't have a lot of cash to continue to work through whether it's continuing to sell the product or continuing to make the product. So a foreclosure would mean we have to come in, we have to see what we're going to do, working in an ABC process, we have the opportunity to sell the customer list maybe to somebody like Matt, who mentioned, that's something key that he wants to see, and then just maximizing the return for the loan that we made, maximizing the return from the assets.
And unlike a foreclosure, in the early days of an ABC, the assignee can actually continue to run the company, keep the ball in the air for some period of time while we seek a buyer. So therefore, we're selling assets, but in a sense, it's a going concern sale.
Well, we just did one of those with you, where we ran the business for over 4 months.
Tell us about it, Aaron.
In an ABC. The world really did not know that we were in an ABC. Creditors did, because we needed to give them certain notices. But the average customer did not. It was a consumer-facing business. And so we were able to sell off the company's inventory at very attractive gross margins, because the world as a whole did not know we were liquidating until literally the last couple of weeks. And so that maximized the proceeds. It allowed lenders to get paid back far more than they otherwise would have. It allowed us to keep the employees stable at the company while also honoring our obligations under WARN and other applicable law, and ultimately to preserve a lot of the brand value such that at the end of that process, it was not so damaged that we wouldn't be able to sell the brand and help that business get restarted. And it's an interesting thing, because the management team in that business has the opportunity now to rebuild the business without all of the legacy mistakes that had been made by their predecessors and without all the legacy expensive infrastructure. So they are now in the process of rebuilding the business with their partners using the state-of-the-art technology and the best available means to operate that business. And so this business, I think, is going to thrive in a way that it was not able to do so before the ABC.
And from a lender's perspective, although they'll take a haircut, they received a lot of cash up front over the last 4 months, as you said, but will also benefit from NewCo, which will pay them an earnout over time. So
correct.
A lot of brand value recovery still exists there.